Welcome to BSR TV. We're live from Laguna Seca for the iRacing British Touring Car Championship rounds 16, 17 and 18 with me, Chris Cohen. 30-minute qualifying session coming up and 3 races this evening as usual, 10 laps each. The cars just finishing their practice session now, drivers getting ready to head out for the 30-minute qualifying session. But before we go ahead and look at the qualifiers doing their stuff, let's check out the standings for the championship at the moment. Because last time out from Okayama was a fascinating experience. Last time out at Okayama was actually the first time that we had 3 different drivers winning the 3 different races in the season. Up until that point, all of the previous meetings, the first 2 races have been won by the same driver. Stelian Chepalevsky on top of the championship has picked up 207 points and 7 race wins so far this season. Great performance so far from him, but Andreas Katz, he might have only won 3 races in the season, but his finishing results have been slightly more consistent. He's only 3 points behind now, so it's still all to play for as we enter the second half of the season. There's 27 rounds in total. So this is going to be rounds 16, 17 and 18, and we've still got plenty of action to come, including the exciting finale to the season which will happen in the new year. Simon Field for Wix Racing is in 3rd place in a heated battle with Richard Wilde, just holding on to 3rd place because Richard Wilde is only 4 points behind in that 4th position spot. Adam Terry has leapfrogged Dan Hunt to take 5th place. Dan Hunt pushed down to 6th, but only 2 points behind, and Robert Fagg is only 4 points behind him. So 5th, 6th and 7th are definitely up for grabs here. Craig Burleson for Team CQR and Hristo Alblev are just slightly ahead of last season's champion Ellis Stevens, who is finally breaking through into the top 10 in what has been a mixed season for him so far. Janowski is in 11th place, McGarity 12th, Fletcher 13th, Burnett 14th, and Ander Blitzkrieg Diaz, who earned that nickname after storming through the field at Okayama last week, is in 15th place. He's jumped ahead of Stephen Hefford and Laura Bond. Steve Richardson picks up 18th place, McCarran 19th, and Sutton 20th. And it's worth mentioning as well that this evening was the first time for the new series, the iRacing Jetta Junior series, which was not covered on BSR TV, unfortunately. We'll try and bring you some coverage of this series, but this is an entry-level series designed to get drivers up to speed with the front-wheel drive style of the Kia Optima that's used in the BTCC, and very much designed to encourage the kind of close quarters, high octane racing, perhaps at a slightly slower speed and a little bit more controllable, hence the junior name. The first round was from Laguna Seca earlier this evening, so that's Thursday evenings from about 7:30 UK time. Andy Dalton was the victor in dramatic style just at the end. We saw a late move from Andreas Katz, but he was eventually pushed down to 3rd place on the final corner after failing to negotiate that corner in a last-ditch dive. Field took 2nd place, Russell Laidler 4th, and Steve Richardson took 5th place. So we'll try and bring you some coverage of that on DSR TV if it's all possible. That is some excellent, exciting, close racing. Very difficult to pull out any kind of an advantage on the track in these cars because they do have a limited amount of power and they are easier to control, so it does make for the racing. Does make the racing a lot more heated, and they can take a bit of punishment as well. They're not like open wheel races where you're afraid to touch each other. These drivers aren't afraid to get stuck in. So a little word on the grid penalties as well for this particular outing at Okayama last week. This was the first week where we've had stewards who are responsible for dishing out a little bit of punishment for infractions, shall we say, and race 1, lap 1, the very first corner, turn 1, was We saw Ashley Sutton go into the back of Stelian Chepelevsky, unfortunately. Just couldn't get out of the way quick enough, so he's been sent to the back of the grid. Sutton, I don't believe, is going to be in the Laguna Seca round, so he'll have to serve his penalty when he returns. Smolensky, 10th place grid penalty in the same race for turn 5 incident. And in the second race, Diaz was sent to the back of the grid for braking at the wrong brake marker. In actual fact, he braked down the straight, the back straight of Okayama, and took out about 4 cars in that incident. Because it was the first lap, everyone was bunched up, and he braked a little bit too early. He got a little bit confused. There was also an incident between Simon Topham and Niels Jordan as well, but there's no result from that, no action to be taken. Let's head over to the track now. Here's Laguna Seca for you. We're about 5 minutes into the qualifying session, and as usual, the track will be shaking everything up. Andreas Katz setting the fastest time at the moment with a 1:28.2. Chepelevsky is no slouch, and the biggest improvement perhaps that we've ever seen in this particular vehicle is Alexander Smolensky, who has done nothing but impress us ever since he's joined the series. Really, he's gone from strength to strength, and now he's in a very commanding position. He's 3rd on the grid provisionally, Robert Fagg 4th, Terry 5th. So Smolensky, who came into the season only a few races ago, is really in a position to do some damage, if you like, grab some good points. He's not in the top 20 yet, but he needs some consistent finishes, and he'll no doubt be moving his way up through the championship in no time. Perhaps too late in the season, seeing as we're already past the halfway point, to make any significant impact, but we'll have to see. So the setup around here is, always a bit of a contentious one. It is a fairly bumpy track, and we've got that infamous corkscrew corner, the blind entry chicane, which is basically off a cliff. Very steep downhill corner. Very difficult to get the car turned in and stopped for that corner. Bound to see plenty of incidents during the races this evening that are as a result of the corkscrew, because we always do. But it is also a fairly quick track. There's a good few fairly long straights on this circuit. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys set up their cars, what the difference is between them. We are missing a few familiar faces. No Craig Burleson this evening, for example. But we've got a few new faces as well. So Niels Jordan, like I said, is we mentioned him earlier. Benjamin Gregory, racing for Jack Goff this week. Tom Stanley takes up a drive for Drivecool. Stanley has been fast in the support races. Very interested to see what he can do out on the track this evening. And Andy Dalton, the winner of that very first inaugural VW Jetta Junior race, is currently in 10th place, driving for Drivecool. Drivecool up until this point not been the most successful team in the league, but that might change with drivers like Stanley and Dalton out there on the track. As always, we're live on Twitch TV. If you have any questions or comments, do put them in the Twitch TV chat if you're able, and we'll try and get those on air. If you wanted to ask anything of the drivers as well, we can always pass on those questions. We'll try and get a few of the drivers, grab a word with those before the evening is out. Quick reminder for you, we are roughly 10 minutes into the half-an-hour qualifying session. Then we'll follow 3 races, 15-minute races roughly, so 10 laps each around Laguna Seca. We're running about a minute and a half laps around here. Lots of action, and the reverse grid will take place in the 3rd race, so the top 10 will have their grid positions reversed, and whoever finishes 10th will be starting on the pole position. Chepelevsky is currently the man with the pole position, and he has had more pole positions than anybody else so far this season. Katz is about 2/10 off, and Smolensky a good way back. They say good way, it's not really that long if you think about it. 0.7 of a second's nothing, but on the track That's a significant margin. So those two might well be in a league of their own, but we're yet to see a challenge from Richard Wilde. He's still 2 seconds off the pace. He'll want to improve on that one for sure. Richard Wilde we've seen very competitive in this season up to this date. Hope to see that continue as well. But he has struggled on occasion. He tangled notably last time at Okayama with Robert Fagg twice and came off the loser in one of those engagements, pushing him down to 5th place in one of those races. But he is very quick. You give him some clean air, clean track, and he will do everything he can to get the most out of that Kia Optima, including run on the gravel by the looks of things. But he's still got to find the pace this evening. Wilde was in a number of the support races yesterday. The support races have just gone from strength to strength in this series, so Wednesday evenings the Skip Barber support race and the SRF support race take place. He was in both of those. He did struggle with this circuit, but it might well have been just to do with the vehicles in question. Wilde very quick in the front wheel drive saloon Kia Optima, a touring car, rather than the open wheel races associated with some of the support races. In the meantime, Kai Barker is up to 7th place, but as you can see on your screen there is a gulf between these times, because 6th place is a full 1.7 seconds off the top time at the moment, and we have 26 entries this evening, so quite a full grid. Very nice to see that many cars heading down to turn 1. Stanley enters the fray in 9th position for Team Drive Cool. That's Kai Barker and Tom Stanley. Oh, and they're just pushed out there down to 9th and 10th, but they're both still in the top 10. But that is a 2-second margin, so the 10th position is 2 seconds slower than the leader at the moment. Smolensky still holding on to that 4th place. We're going to go on board with Alexander Smolensky for a lap around this very tricky circuit here at Laguna Seca. Out of turn 1, wants to get the car over to the left hand side as quickly as possible. That was actually turn 2, beg your pardon, and he's pulling the car over, so we'll come back to that later. We thought it was on a hot lap, but that's not the case. Robert Fagg is in 5th place at the moment, but Simon Fields just edging him out. He'll want that 4th place back as well, because every single grid position is going to be as important as it could be on this track. If you get down to turn 1 quickly off the line, you could potentially hold on to that for the rest of the race. It's not the easiest place to get past people, this circuit, especially not in these cars. They don't have a huge advantage even when you get a good exit on some of these corners. A whole host of cars are exiting the pits there, and that's gonna slow down McCarron, but a couple of the cars getting out of his way, which is good to see. Nick McCarron, the only entry for Team Club 44 nowadays. He's stuck with the team, although a 19th place in the championship won't quite be what he was expecting. He did a lot better last season, but just not able to find that consistent form that he was able to find in the previous season. A question from Laxon in the Twitch is what kind of timing do you expect for the pole position? And that's a very good question. Chepalevsky setting at 1:28.010, and I would have, if you'd asked me before the session, I would have said it would be very surprising to see a 1:27. But if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Chepalevsky, and you can just see how much the drivers are struggling with this track, except for the guys right at the top there, because Terry's still 1.7 seconds off, so it's very rare to find 6th position a full 1.7 seconds down. Russell Laidler for CQR is in 7th place, just a fraction below that, but there's a definite gulf between the top 5 and the rest of the field, really. It's difficult to say exactly what the top time's going to be because we're about halfway through the qualifying session, but you know, it wouldn't surprise me if Chepalevsky were to get into the 1:27s in this session, which would be a fantastic result. It really would. Coming down the positions a little bit, McCarran managing 11th place at the moment. Dan Hunt is in 12th place, Richard Wilde 13th, Laura Bond 15th, Dalton, the winner of that Jetta race earlier, is in 15th place, Stephen McGarity 16th, Tim Mawson 17th, Janowski 18th, Malcolm 19th, and Stephen Hefford in 20th. And that'll be rather alien for Stephen Hefford to be down there in 20th position. You wouldn't necessarily expect that. He's going to want to get on the case and raise his game a little bit, but it's difficult around this track. It's a good leveler, very, very technical circuit, good fun to drive, but demanding in a huge way. Steve Richardson down in 22nd place at the moment, out of 26 entries, I believe, 26 entries at the moment, and a returning Tariq Islam for the Rockstar team. We saw him in action last week, is just about at the bottom of the grid, not able to set a quick time yet, but he's still got 15 minutes to do so. Tom Stanley is being talked about in the Twitch chat as well. Where do you think he'll finish? It's a very good question. Stanley, if anything, is consistent, and he will not let this put him off. There's some big names out there. He's in 11th place on the grid at the moment. He will not let any of those big names put him off. He's going to be coming through the field, I imagine, even if he can't improve his qualifying time, just because we're likely to lose a few characters to the technicality of the circuit, shall we say. I think a top 10 finish for Stanley is not unreasonable, although I don't think he'll make the top 5. Quite willing to be proven wrong, of course. Aaron Mullen down in 22nd place, Addison Lee Racing just coming through to complete another lap now. Let's get that lap time up on the screen and see exactly how he's doing. A 1:31.2, which is by no means an awful time. It's just that the level of competition here is so high that that's put him far enough back. He's about 3 seconds off the pole position time at the moment. Over the line in a 1:32, so no improvement there. And don't forget, when you're qualifying on these circuits, you need to make sure that you don't go off the track. If you go off the track, even with 2 wheels in certain places, your lap time is invalidated and you will have to come back and do another lap, which is very demoralising, especially on a circuit like this with lots of elevation changes. We'll try and get a full lap in. Hopefully Richard Wilde will want to go around once again and see if we can go on board with Richard Wilde and go around this circuit from his point of view. Over the line, 1:28.8 from Richard Wilde. That's more like it. That jumps Richard Wilde up into, well, the 5th position, just behind Simon Field, his main rival in the championship. Gets it a little bit wide. He wants to keep the car over on the left-hand side as long as possible. Late entry here onto the... he hits the red marker there. Didn't want to do that, but uses the rumble strip on the way out. Keep as much power down through this corner as possible without drifting out wide. That's the natural inclination for this car. And you've got a nice short straight and under the bridge. Coming through turn 5, late on the brakes, turn the car in. Very deceptive exit. The turn seems to go on and on and on forever, and then a drag race up the hill into the notoriously difficult turn 6. Wants to keep it tucked in as possible, and had to let off just slightly there. The straight leading up to the corkscrew is all important. Very, very difficult entry to this corner. The left and the right drops off the cliff. Very well done there, and through Rayners now. Keeps it nice and tight, just uses that inside apex, which is absolutely fantastic. Couple of corners to go. This is a fairly easy right-hander, and then just a hairpin at the edge of the circuit. Brakes at the 2 marker and round the hairpin to round out another lap for Richard Wilde. Very clean, as we expected. He won't improve on his time from last time. Oh, he does, in fact. Made to eat my words there. 1:28.7 jumps him up to 4th position. So good job from Richard Wilde there. He has he's decided to pull that one over. I'm not surprised. Fantastic job. 1:28.8 and then a 1:28.7 on the following lap. He's in 4th position. Kai Barker, meanwhile, has been pushed down to 12th place because this lady has entered the top 10. Laura Bond, driving for Bianco, with a 1:27.7. The top 10 is a very competitive place to be, and you can see those times have really amalgamated themselves into a nicer chunk now. So 10th place is 1.7 seconds. In fact, we now have Laura Bond's been pushed down to 11th, and Russell Laidler is in 10th place with Andy Dalton in 9th. So Tom Stanley has moved into the 8th position. Excellent work from Tom Stanley there. And just in the chat, just picking up in the chat there, somebody's mentioning Laura Bond's full motion rig, and it's quite the sight to behold. We have been able to view it on you. There is a YouTube video, I think, floating around somewhere, and whether that helps or not, I'm not sure. It's one of those things. Is it realistic enough that it helps you drive faster? I'm sure some drivers would say yes. I'm not sure. Never had the privilege of driving in something quite that fancy. But it's certainly working for her, because she is in 11th position at the moment. Katz then through the corkscrew. He wants that pole position, but he's still 0.2 of a second off with about 9 minutes to go here at Laguna Seca. BSR TV is bringing you round 16, 17 and 18 of the iRacing British Touring Car Championship. Katz decides to bail out of that particular lap. Smolensky, meanwhile, is on a bit of a rampage. 128.571, only half a second off that pole position. Smolensky has given up that lap as well. So let's have a look at last season's champion, Ellis Stevens, also driving for eBay Motors. And you notice that these guys have the different mirror colours, so if you see an eBay Motors car with red mirrors, then you know that that is Stevens. And each of the other drivers has different colours. Katz with green mirrors, for example. One of the Yuasa racing cars just up in front pulls out of his way. Stevens will want to improve, but that looks like it's an outlap. Let's go on board with Ellis Stevens as he comes over the line to start a new lap. Through turn 1, which isn't really a turn, and then he's hard on the brakes there. Very difficult to get this car through the double apex left-hander. Doesn't do a bad job at all there. Just unsettling the car there on that little red marker. That won't help at all. And then you just want to miss that one, which he has done. Those little red markers, unfortunately, are quite lumpy and will unsettle the car. But you can see just how much of the circuit he's using, which is pretty much the maximum amount he can without touching those little markers there. Just a little dab on the brakes perhaps, or a lift, and then through that little kink, and the apex of that corner is actually in a little dip, and that can unsettle the car, but not if you're an experienced driver like Stevens. And he's binned it on the corkscrew, unfortunately, too much on the brakes, and that's going to ruin his time. But one of the most difficult corners, this one he's coming through here. The left-hander is off-camber downhill. Very easy to lose the car there, and the right-hander is much easier, fortunately. Kind of gives you a bit of a breather, because the hairpin is not too difficult to get right either. Through the hairpin, and Stevens will know that that's not a lap to remember, particularly. 130.1. Well, by most driver standards, that's a very quick lap. For Stevens, that's not quick enough. So, 6 minutes of this qualifying session left. Chepolewski is still to improve on his time from earlier. Seems to be taking a bit of a nap in the middle of the circuit for some reason. Interesting. 128.010. And if he doesn't get into the 127s, I don't think he's going to be too disappointed, because he looks like he might well be the only person to be able to do it. Seems like we've got a few Tom Stanley fans in the VSR TV Twitch chat this evening as well. So nice to have some participation from you guys as well. We'll check back with you guys for any questions that you might have for any of the drivers, or just about the session, or how this works in general, that kind of thing. We'll do our best to keep you informed. And if you're watching on YouTube after the fact, then you can't ask us anything, but do leave a comment after the video, and we'll see what we can do. Russell Laidler, 10th place man at the minute, 1.6 seconds off. Now he's coming over the line to finish in a 129.9, so no improvement there for Laidler, unfortunately. Richard Wilde, meanwhile, has pushed Smolensky down into 4th place. He is now in that 3rd position, and if he carries on with pace like that, he's going to be difficult to stop. It could well be a 3rd position finish for Richard Wilde, and we've seen him get even higher as well. Ander Diaz, meanwhile, the most exciting driver arguably last week, perhaps not the cleanest after that back of the grid penalty for him. Ander Blitzkrieg Diaz managed to give us some great entertainment, but misses this round. So not only will he have to serve his grid penalty when he comes back for the next race, we're also not going to see him this evening at all, which will be a shame. Craig Burleson, no sign of Craig Burleson this evening as well, which is also a shame. CQR, rather underrepresented, because we have no Ashley Sutton either, the other driver with the back of the grid penalty from the last race. And these are drivers who genuinely don't have the ability to attend this evening. They are engaged in other things. You can't skip a grid penalty by not turning up for the session. You just end up getting it the next time you show up. So unfortunate, low representation from CQR. Steve Richardson up to 21st position with the yellow mirrors on that eBay Motors car. That's how you tell them apart. The same for the CQR team. The boys in CQR will have different coloured mirrors too. So the incident limit is, well, I'll double check this one as well, but it's 11 incidents, that's right, for tonight's race. You will be instantly disqualified if you get more than 11 incident points. And the way this works is, if you go off the track with more than 2 wheels, even 2 wheels off the track in certain places is enough to trigger it. An off track is worth 1 point. And a spin, so facing more than 90 degrees away from the direction you're supposed to be facing, is worth 2 points. And a collision with another car is worth full 4 points, 4 incident points. So, I mean a proper incident, a proper collision as well. You can brush up to another car. That's not a problem. If you brush up to another car, you might get away with it, but probably not worth the risk. If you have 3 collisions with other cars during one race, you will gain 12 incidents, and that will instantly disqualify you from the race. No matter where you are on the circuit, you will just stop. You will be taken off the track, and you will not be able to carry on. Which is kind of scary, but it does encourage a lot of clean racing, and that's what we saw last week. We saw guys who would normally be taking big risks, causing big collisions, for the most part staying out of trouble. Tom Stanley is up to 8th place now, still a second and a half off the pole position time, with about a minute and a half, minute 45 to go in this session. A few connection problems for Stanley, that's why you're just seeing the car blink in and out of existence. What's known as blinking in iRacing is a little bit unfortunate. Happens sometimes. Let's see if we can get the on-board up for Tom Stanley and see exactly how he's doing driving around this track for Drive Cool. So Andy Dalton moves up to 9th place. Laidler's still there in 10th place. Simon Field, who has been so much improved this season over last season, is in 5th place, and he's if he's done anything this season differently, it's finished consistently. So what we always say here on BSR TV is, if you can consistently score a few points, it's much better than scoring heavily in only a few races. Coming through the penultimate corner there, and it's got a big slide on there, and we were talking a little bit earlier about setups and how that might work at this track, and it's tempting to run with a very low wing for these big long straights, but if you run with a very low wing, the car's very unstable in the braking, and it takes a great deal of skill to control it. A 129.975, that's about 0.4 of a second off being an improvement for Tom Stanley, so he stays in 8th place. Once the qualifying session is... these drivers will be able to round out the final lap that they're on, and then we will be heading for about a 10-minute break before the first race. So the first race does not follow instantly after the qualifying session, as the session officially is coming to an end. And a race steward is on hand this evening to make sure that nobody has any unfair collisions. We saw this last week as a nice shot of both of the Drive Cool cars coming through turn 6 now. If the race steward sees any kind of unnecessary car contact on the first lap, the culprit will be sent to the back of the grid for the next meeting. So you can't have a grid penalty imposed at Laguna Seca. It will be imposed the next time out in the next 3 rounds. And also any other incidents will be investigated by the race steward, who is a fair guy. It's not here to kind of ban people or make people feel like they shouldn't be overtaking or taking any kind of risks. It's those unnecessary risks that ruin the race for everybody that we never like to see in iRacing, because iRacing's better than that, right? Right? Something like that. An improvement for Tom Stanley then doesn't help him move up the order just slightly faster. He's still in 8th position. A few cars still out on the track then. Robert Fagg is currently in the 8th position, the 7th position rather. This was Rob Fagg won the race, Brands Hatch Indy, to open the season, and hasn't really been able to repeat that form. Been slowed up by one of the UASA cars and bails out of that lap. That UASA car belongs to Stephen Hefford, who only managed 14th in the end. It was an improvement for him, but he should be fairly pleased with that. So, after the qualifying session has finished, I believe we're through with all the cars. Oh, we've got one more car out on track. I don't think this lap will count though. I think he's out of time. Benjamin Gregory. Never mind. Stelian Chepelewski takes the pole position. We didn't see a 1 minute 27. Don't think he'll be too bothered about that. Katz, 2nd position. The 2nd row of the grid will be Richard Wilde and Alexander Smolensky. The 3rd row, Richard Wilde's main rival Simon Field, along with Adam Terry. Row 4, Robert Fagg, and the new entry Tom Stanley. Fantastic performance for Team Drive Cool. Another new entry on the 5th row, Andy Dalton with Russell Laidler, CQR Fanta. The 6th row is shared between Laura Bond and Alice Stevens. Julian Janowski and Hefford will share row 7. 15th and 16th place, Kai Barker and Dan Hunt. Nick McCarran, Stephen McGarity, Tim Mawson and Scott Malcolm round out the top 20. And it just goes on from there. 26 cars will be taken to the grid by the end of this race. And this should be an absolutely fascinating race, I have to say. It's just such a leveler. We've been saying this earlier. Just such a leveler. It's so easy to go off on this track. You have to be so careful. It's such a technical circuit. Apart from that big long start finish straight, it is a track where you can't relax, really. And some of these drivers will succumb to that, I'm sure. Now, with the qualifying results in, I'm wondering if we might be able to get a quick word with some of our qualifying drivers just to get an idea how they might see this race panning out. I'm going to go over now and see if we can have a quick word with Team Speedworks driver Robert Fagg. No, we can't have a word with him, unfortunately. So we'll try and have a quick word with Russell Laidler. Russell, are you there? Russell, are you there? I think perhaps Russell...
Hello?
Oh, he is here. Hello, Russell Laidler for CQR Fanta. Welcome to BSR TV. How did you find that?
I think punching above my weight kind of sums it up, really. Very daunting, but my God, I enjoyed that.
Well, it's a 10th position, and you're not having too much experience in the series suggests that actually you did alright. I mean, the top qualifying time is only 1.6 seconds ahead of you from a chap who with a lot more experience. So, starting from row 5 on the grid, what's your expectations?
Gonna be honest, probably looking in my mirror a lot.
Well, you've got last season's champion Ellis Stevens starting right behind you on the grid, so you'll be keeping an eye on that eBay Motors car, no doubt.
No pressure then.
How is the 11 incident limit going to come into play for you in this race?
So long as I behave myself and so long as people behind me, it's mainly the contact, because even the slightest nudge, it can come up times 2, times 4, and that's quite a big chunk of your allowance, really. And it doesn't take much, as you say, 10th to 20th, you're in that midfield pack. Anything can happen. It just takes one wrong move at the wrong place, and well, we've all seen the mess that can happen in real life. And
well, absolutely. And if you had to pick a winner, who's your favourite?
I do have a thing for Stefan because he's insane, but I'd like to see Katz give him a good run because of what I've been seeing recently. Katz has been really picking up the pace.
Well, best of luck for race 1. We've got 3 exciting races coming up, and hopefully we can see CQR Fanta pick up some points.
Thank you very much. Catch you later, mate.
So that's Russell Laidler for CQR Fanta, and as he says, it's going to be a tough battle between Chepelewski and Katz, but if there's anything we've learned from watching those two duke it out on the track up until this point, it's that they are both very fair drivers. So there is that to bear in mind. That was the qualifying session ahead of round 16, 17 and 18 in the iRacing British Touring Car Championship here on BSR TV. Join us in a few minutes time for the start of round 16, which will see Chepelewski on pole. If you're on Twitch TV, don't go anywhere. If you're on YouTube, just select the next video. And we'll now take a quick break. We'll be back soon.